Welcome to a fascinating exploration of language, specifically the Hebrew language, and its role in dating the writing of the Torah. Our journey begins with understanding the evolution of language itself. Just like living organisms, languages evolve, change, and adapt over time. Take the English language, for instance. From the Old English of Beowulf, through the Middle English of Chaucer, to the modern English we speak today, the language has undergone dramatic transformations. Vocabulary expands, grammar simplifies, and sounds shift. Similarly, the Hebrew language, the language of the Torah, has evolved. It has journeyed from the archaic forms of the early biblical period, through the classical and transitional periods, to the late biblical Hebrew that more closely resembles the modern Hebrew spoken today. This evolution is not a linear, uniform process, but rather a complex interplay of linguistic, cultural, and historical factors. Languages borrow words from one another, they change in response to societal shifts, and sometimes they even revive lost words and structures. In the case of the Hebrew language, its evolution is intricately linked with the history of the Jewish people, their migrations, interactions with other cultures, and changing religious practices. It's a rich tapestry that tells a story not just of a language, but of a people and their sacred texts. Understanding this evolution of language is crucial to unravel the mysteries of the Torah. Biblical Hebrew, the language of the Torah, went through four main periods: early, classical, transitional, and late biblical Hebrew. Each period is like a snapshot in time, reflecting the linguistic trends and influences of its era. The early biblical Hebrew period is the oldest, featuring archaic forms and vocabulary. Next, we have classical biblical Hebrew, the time when the language reached its peak in terms of structure and syntax. Then we transition into the transitional biblical Hebrew period. This is a fascinating time of change as the language starts to show signs of evolution, influenced by the surrounding cultures and languages. Finally, we arrive at the late biblical Hebrew period, where the language is noticeably different from its early roots, showcasing a more evolved and complex linguistic structure. Each of these periods has unique features that give us clues about the age of different texts in the Torah. The beauty of language is that it evolves, and in its transformation, it carries with it the marks of history, culture, and intellectual development. Let's look closer at the distinct features of each period of biblical Hebrew. The early biblical Hebrew period, often referred to as archaic biblical Hebrew, is characterized by unique linguistic features. These include a distinct morphology, such as the use of the wayu conversive to change verb tense, and a syntax that bears a closer resemblance to other ancient Semitic languages. Moving on, we enter the classical biblical Hebrew period. This era is marked by a shift towards a more standardized language structure. The wayu conversive is used less frequently, and the syntax begins to diverge from its Semitic relatives, developing a unique identity. The transitional biblical Hebrew period shows further evolution. Here we see the introduction of new vocabulary and a shift in syntax, signifying a transition towards the language form we see in later texts. Finally, we reach the late biblical Hebrew period. This is where we see a significant change in the language. The morphology has become more streamlined, the syntax is more complex, and the vocabulary has expanded significantly, incorporating words and phrases from Aramaic and Persian. These linguistic features offer a fascinating insight into the Torah's evolution. By examining the morphology, syntax, and vocabulary of these periods, we can glean a deeper understanding of the texts. This linguistic analysis provides more than just a study of language. It offers a glimpse into the cultural, social, and historical contexts of the times when different parts of the Torah were written. These features offer a linguistic snapshot of the times when different parts of the Torah were written. Comparative linguistics gives us the tools to differentiate the language of the Torah from that of later periods. By comparing linguistic features, we can distinguish between early, classical, transitional, and late biblical Hebrew. Consider the Torah's syntax, morphology, and vocabulary. These features are noticeably archaic, suggesting that they originated in an earlier period than the classical Hebrew of later texts. For instance, The Torah exhibits a distinct preference for certain verb forms and constructions that are rare or absent in later periods. Additionally, its vocabulary includes words and phrases that are unique or have different meanings in the context of the Torah compared to their usage in later texts. Moreover, the Torah's language shows similarities to other ancient Semitic languages, further supporting the idea that it was written in an early linguistic period. By comparing these characteristics, researchers can identify the unique linguistic fingerprints of the Torah. This comparison provides compelling evidence of the Torah's ancient origins. The Torah's songs, written in ancient Hebrew, offer an intriguing linguistic puzzle. These songs, often considered the most ancient parts of the Torah, are rich in linguistic features that harken back to the earliest periods of the Hebrew language. The vocabulary, syntax, and morphology of these songs bear striking resemblances to other Semitic languages, like Ugaritic, which thrived in the late Bronze Age. This similarity suggests a common linguistic heritage, a shared root that predates the Torah itself. For instance, the Song of the Sea and the Song of Deborah, two of the most ancient songs in the Torah, contain linguistic elements that align closely with Ugaritic poetry. By comparing these ancient Hebrew songs with their counterparts in Ugaritic and other Semitic languages, scholars can trace the evolution of Hebrew and its divergence from its Semitic siblings. These linguistic connections deepen our understanding of the Torah's historical context. They allow us to glimpse into the past, to a time when Hebrew was just one of many Semitic languages, not yet the holy tongue of the Torah, but a living, evolving language spoken by the people of the ancient Near East. The Torah's language reveals a treasure trove of archaic forms and vocabulary. As we delve deeper into the linguistic layers of this ancient text, we unearth unique expressions and structures that have long since faded from everyday use. These linguistic fossils, such as ancient verb forms, obsolete pronouns, and Old World idioms, are exclusive to the Torah, setting it apart from texts of later periods. For instance, the Torah uses the verb form katala in places where later texts would use he killed. Similarly, we find archaic pronouns like thou and ye, which have been replaced by you in modern usage, not to mention the Old World idioms that paint a vivid picture of life thousands of years ago. These linguistic fossils further confirm the Torah's ancient origins. Names and theophoric elements in the Torah offer additional clues to its ancient origins. The Torah's names, often suffixed or prefixed with the divine name, are a beacon of its historical context. Theophoric names, those containing a deity's name, are especially insightful. They provide a snapshot of the religious beliefs prevalent at the time of the Torah's writing, offering a historical context that transcends mere linguistics. Take, for instance, the name Elijah, which translates to "My God is Yahweh." This name carries a rich tapestry of religious and cultural significance from the period of its inception. Similarly, the name Daniel, meaning "God is my judge," points to a time when divine judgment was a central tenet of societal norms. Theophoric elements are not just confined to human names, however. They can also be found in place names within the Torah, like Bethel, which means house of God. These geographical markers further reinforce the religious beliefs of the era, painting a vivid picture of the spiritual landscape. These elements add another layer to the linguistic landscape of the Torah. The Torah's language stands out as unique from later biblical texts. This is not merely a casual observation, but a significant conclusion drawn from intense linguistic analysis. The Torah, with its archaic forms, vocabulary, and theophoric elements, distinguishes itself from the language of later biblical texts. The ancient Hebrew found in the Torah's songs, the names and their historical contexts, all point towards its early origins. Comparative linguistics further aids in differentiating the Torah's language from that of later periods, reinforcing its antiquity. This unique language does more than just date the Torah. It provides us with an understanding of a culture, a people, and a time that has long since passed. It is, in essence, a living record, a chronicle etched in words and phrases, bearing testament to its ancient roots. This unique language is a powerful testament to the Torah's ancient roots, offering us a window into a time long past.